My name is Callista. I'm 28 years old, and I'm in the final stretch of my PhD in computational linguistics at one of the top tech universities on the West Coast. As grand as that sounds, my reality is a chaotic symphony of endless nights in the lab, mountains of textbooks that block out the sun, and a bank account that's perpetually on life support. I'm not just a doctoral candidate, I'm the co-founder of a fledgling AI startup, a side hustle that my best friend Liam and I have poured all our sweat, tears, and every last borrowed dollar into. To the outside world, I'm the picture of budding success, a sharp mind, a relentless work ethic, a bright future waiting just around the corner. But in the miniature universe of my family, nestled in a comfortable California suburb, my role is entirely different. I am dependable Callista, responsible Callista, Callista who can handle herself. These are the titles I've worn since childhood, medals made of lead that weigh heavily on my shoulders, while my younger sister, Brianna, has always been adorned with glittering silk ribbons. Brianna, 4 years my junior, is a planet in a completely different orbit. She is an artistic soul, an influencer with tens of thousands of followers who are mesmerized by her meticulously curated selfies and vapid captions about living your truth. Her life is a series of spontaneous road trips, lavish brunches, and expensive outfits, all cheerfully funded by my parents under the justification of creativity and inspiration. The contrast between us wasn't just a faint sketch, it was an oil painting rendered in stark, opposing colors. The Christmas I was 16, I received a refurbished laptop with the instruction to use it for your studies. Brianna, then 12, got a designer handbag she used exactly once. When I earned a full-ride scholarship for my undergraduate degree, my parents nodded with satisfaction. Good for her. She's always been so independent. But when Brianna won a minor local photography contest, they threw a massive party, inviting the entire neighborhood to witness the natural-born talent of their youngest daughter. I have paid for everything in my adult life. The rent for my cramped studio apartment, where the pipes groan each night like a weeping ghost. Mine. The tuition for my master's degree, which I covered by working as a teaching assistant. Mine. The student loan debt that's swelling like an invisible monster? Also mine. I was used to it. I had accepted that love in my family was a finite resource, and Brianna's portion was simply larger. I told myself my independence was a strength, that not relying on anyone was the ultimate form of maturity. But deep down, a child was still screaming for validation. A child was tired of always having to be the strong one. And then, the drama began, not with a bang, but with a phone call from my mother, her voice as sweet as honey-laced poison. "Callie, honey," she started, using the pet name reserved for when she needed a favor. "You know your sister has been hitting a major creative block lately, don't you?" I was sitting amidst a pile of algorithm printouts, my eyes glued to a computer screen, my brain stretched taut. "I'm not sure, Mom." Last I checked, she was finding inspiration at a high-end spa resort. My mother ignored my sarcasm. "Yes, but that was just a patch. She needs a real push. A trip. A true artistic pilgrimage through Europe, Paris, Rome, Florence. Can you imagine? The photos, the stories, the art she'll create. This could change Brianna's entire career." I took a deep breath, the smell of stale coffee and old paper filling my nostrils. "That sounds expensive, Mom." "Oh, a little," she said, her voice impossibly light. "Your father and I have run the numbers. It'll be a bit tight, but we can manage, with a little help." And there it was. The bomb drop. The thing is, our credit cards have been having some issues lately. The limits aren't flexible enough. "But your card, you have an excellent credit score, Callista. You're always so responsible. Could we use your card to book the flights and hotels? Just for the convenience of it. We promise we'll pay you back immediately, every single cent. We can even write up an agreement if you'd like." Silence. In that void, I could hear alarm bells shrieking in my head. My entire life had been a series of these little helps, small requests that accumulated into a crushing weight. But my mother's voice, so full of hope and pleading, poked at my chronic weak spot, the desperate need to be a good daughter. Mom, I don't know. I hesitated. I'm scraping by to cover the startup's operating costs. Everything is incredibly tight. Oh, Callie, don't you worry about a thing. My father chimed in from another line, his voice dripping with its usual patriarchal authority. This is for your sister. Family helps family. You wouldn't want your sister to miss out on this golden opportunity, would you? We're talking about a month-long trip, maybe $20,000. We've got it covered. $20,000. The number stunned me. It was the equivalent of my entire emergency fund, painstakingly saved over 3 years. But then the image of Brianna, her eyes sparkling with hope, and my parents, their gazes expectant, flashed in my mind. Maybe, just this once, it would be different. Maybe, if I did this, they would finally see my value, my sacrifice. Okay, I sighed, the word a weak surrender. But on one condition. Send me a detailed spending plan. Every booking has to be pre-approved by me. And we need a clear repayment agreement, signed by both you and Dad. Wonderful. You're the best, Callie. My mother cheered. I knew I could always count on you. The call ended. I sat there, in the silence of my tiny apartment, a knot of dread tightening in my stomach. I had made a mistake. A fatal one. The next few weeks passed in a deceptive calm. My parents sent me a perfunctory spending plan, listing economy-class flights, 3-star hotels, and a reasonable food budget. I reviewed it, requested a few adjustments, and finally, with a heavy heart, provided my credit card information. They promised to forward every booking confirmation for my records. But the confirmation emails never arrived. Every time I asked, my mother had an excuse. Oh, it must have gone to your spam folder. Or, the travel agency is processing everything, they'll send a consolidated itinerary later. Or, honey, don't worry so much, just trust us. And like a fool, I did. I was so consumed by my dissertation, by the pressure of landing a critical contract for the startup, that I let my guard down. I chose to believe in the fantasy of a harmonious family where promises were kept and sacrifices were acknowledged. The awakening came on a Tuesday afternoon, about 2 weeks later. I was in the lab, trying to debug a stubborn piece of code, when my phone buzzed. A notification from my banking app. Asterisk. Thank you for your payment of $8,450 to British Airways. Asterisk. My heart skipped a beat. $8,000? For airfare? The plan was for around $3,000 for all 3 of them. I frantically opened the app, and then all hell broke loose. A second notification. Asterisk. Thank you for your payment of $12,700 at the Ritz Paris. Asterisk. A third. Asterisk. Thank you for your payment of $9,200 at Hotel de Russie, Rome. Asterisk. A fourth. Asterisk. Thank you for your payment of $11,500 at the Est. Regis Florence. Asterisk. A cascade of other charges followed, a bloody meteor shower of expenses, a $5,000 charge for a private car service, a $6,000 charge for a private wine tour in Tuscany. Smaller, but no less horrifying, charges from high-fashion boutiques on the Champs, Élysées, Chanel, Dior, Louis Vuitton. I sat there, frozen, the phone trembling in my hand. The numbers danced before my eyes, adding up to a monstrous, unbelievable sum. I scrambled for my computer's calculator, my fingers shaking as I typed. 8,450加12,700加9,200加11,500加50加60. The total. Over $75,000. 75,000. The number bored a hole in my brain. It wasn't just money, it was my entire future. It was the seed money for my company. It was the down payment on a decent apartment. It was freedom from debt. All of it, vaporized in a cloud of luxury for the people I called my family. The initial shock quickly gave way to something else. A cold, pure rage. It wasn't a hot, roaring fire, but a glacier forming in my chest, sharp and unmoving. They hadn't just lied to me. They had dismissed me. They had looked at my hard work, my sacrifice, my trust, and seen it as a limitless resource to be exploited for their selfish desires. They had done this with cold calculation, certain that dependable Callista would grumble, but ultimately fall silent and absorb the blow, as she always did. But they were wrong. They had pushed the silent lamb too far, failing to realize that beneath the soft fleece was a wolf backed into a corner. I checked the departure time on the British Airways confirmation I'd finally unearthed from my deleted emails folder. They'd tried to hide it. Their flight had taken off from San Francisco 4 hours ago. Right now, they were somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean, 35,000 feet in the air, probably sipping first-class champagne and dreaming of the cobblestone streets of Paris, completely oblivious that the ground beneath them was about to crumble. A chilling smile touched my lips. This was no longer a family matter. This was financial fraud. And I knew exactly what to do. I pulled out my phone. My fingers scrolled through my contacts, past Mom and Dad, and landed on the 24/7 customer service number on the back of my credit card. I took a deep, calming breath. When the operator's voice came on the line, my own voice was perfectly calm, steady, and lethal. "Hello," I said. "My name is Callista. I'm calling to report a series of fraudulent charges on my card, and I would like to freeze my account immediately." The conversation with the fraud prevention specialist felt like a reverse confession. I, the victim, felt a strange pang of guilt for exposing my own family. But with every number I read aloud, $12,700 for the Ritz, $9,200 for the Hotel de Russimi, resolve hardened. This was not a misunderstanding. This was intentional, malicious abuse. "Ma'am," the agent, David, said with a sympathetic tone, "are you certain you didn't authorize these charges? It appears they were made by family members." "I authorized a specific spending plan not to exceed $20,000, I replied, my voice like ice. "Anything above that was fraudulent. They deceived me. They used my information to make these purchases without my consent. The total is now over $75,000. I want the card locked now. And I want any pending charges for future hotels and services to be canceled." There was a pause on the other end as David processed this. "I understand, Miss Reed. I see the British Airways flight has cleared. But the hotel reservations, the Ritz, the Hotel de Russy, these were prepaid for the entire stays. Canceling them could be complex and may involve fees." "I don't care about the fees," I cut in. "Freeze the account, everything, right now. When they land, that card needs to be a worthless piece of plastic." "I'm on it, Miss Reed. Your account will be frozen within the next 5 minutes. We will also begin the dispute process for these charges." "Thank you, David." I hung up, my chest heaving. I'd done it. The nuclear button had been pushed. The fallout would be catastrophic, but for the first time in years, I felt a strange and profound sense of relief. The burden of pleasing them, of sacrificing myself, was gone. I had chosen me. I left the lab, unable to focus. I walked back to my apartment under the dim orange glow of the streetlights. My apartment, with its peeling paint and second-hand furniture, had never looked so welcoming. It was mine. Everything in it, however humble, was a product of my own labor. It wasn't built on deceit or entitlement. I couldn't sleep that night. I sat on my frayed sofa, staring out the window, my mind racing through the inevitable scenarios. I pictured them landing at Charles de Gaulle, tired but exhilarated. Brianna would be rushing to update her Instagram. Bonjour Paris. Number Wanderlust. Number Artist Life. They'd hail a cab or their pre-booked car, give the driver the address for the Ritz, and upon arrival, in that magnificent marble lobby, the card would be declined. The confusion. The anger. The humiliation. And then, the inevitable, furious phone call to me. I needed to be ready. I couldn't let emotion take over. I needed a plan, an ally. I immediately thought of Liam, my best friend and co-founder. Liam wasn't just a brilliant coder, he was my rock. He'd witnessed my tearful calls with my mother, listened to my complaints about the family favoritism hundreds of times. I called him, even though it was nearly midnight. "Callie, everything okay?" He answered instantly, his voice laced with concern. And I told him everything. Every humiliating detail. The $75,000. The call to the credit card company. The decision to freeze the card while they were in midair. Liam listened in silence. When I finished, he said only one thing. "It's about damn time." "Did I do the right thing, Liam?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Am I a monster?" "A monster?" "Callie, you're the victim. They committed grand-scale financial abuse against you. You did the only thing you could to protect yourself. I'm proud of you." His words were a balm to my frayed nerves. "So what do I do now? They're going to call. They're going to scream." "Write down what you need to say," Liam advised. "Write down the facts, the numbers, the deceit. Don't let them turn it into an emotional screaming match. Make it a business meeting. You're the CEO of your own life, Callie. Stop letting them stage a hostile takeover." His advice was brilliant. I grabbed a legal pad and a pen and started writing. Not an angry letter, but a statement of facts. Fact 1. The agreement was for a supervised $20,000 budget. Asterisk. Fact 2. You spent $75,342.87 without my consent. Asterisk. Fact 3. You actively concealed these transactions. Asterisk. Fact 4. This constitutes financial fraud. Asterisk. Conclusion. The card is locked. The reservations are disputed. You are responsible for your own situation. Asterisk. Writing it down made me feel powerful. It turned the emotional chaos into an irrefutable, logical sequence. As I wrote, another voice echoed in my mind. My grandmother's. She was the only one in the family who had ever truly seen me. She'd passed away 5 years ago, but her wisdom was a constant presence. "Callista, my love," she used to say, stroking my hair. "Your worth isn't determined by their inability to see it. You are solid gold, even if they treat you like scrap metal. Don't you ever let them make you forget it." She had left me a small inheritance, just a few $1,000s, along with all her books. I'd invested that money in early tech stocks, and it had become the seed money for our startup. She had believed in me. Now, I had to believe in myself. I thought of one more person. Professor Miller, my dissertation advisor. He was a legend in the field of AI, a man with a razor-sharp mind and no time for nonsense. He had seen the potential in my research when no one else did. He had pushed me, challenged me, and given me the invaluable research assistantship that helped me survive. He was a true mentor. I knew that, if everything else fell apart, I still had my career. I still had my mind. That was something my family could never touch. With this support network, Liam, the memory of my grandmother, and the respect of Professor Mallory no longer felt alone. I wasn't dependable Callista waiting to be bailed out. I was the future doctor. Callista, CEO of a tech company, and I would not back down. My phone rang at 7 a.m. California time, which was 4 p.m. in Paris. An international number. It was time. I took one last, deep breath, looked at my notes, and hit answer. "Callista, what the hell did you do?" My father's roar blasted through the phone, shrill and apoplectic. In the background, I could hear the din of a crowded hotel lobby and my mother's hysterical sobbing. I remained silent, letting his rage burn itself out against the air. "Are you listening to me?" he bellowed. "The card. It's not working. We're stranded here. The Ritz says the payment was canceled. Are you trying to humiliate us in front of the entire world?" I waited until he was finished, then replied, my voice flat and emotionless, as if I were reading a weather report. "I didn't do anything, Dad. I reacted to what you, Mom, and Brianna did." "What did we do?" my mother shrieked, snatching the phone. Her voice trembled with a cocktail of rage and indignation. "We were trying to give your sister the chance she deserves. The trip of a lifetime, and you ruined it. You are selfish and cruel." "Selfish?" I almost laughed, but caught myself. You want to talk about selfish? Let's talk about the numbers. Would you like me to read the list of charges aloud? Silence. A thick, guilty silence. We agreed to $20,000. I continued, my voice maintaining its scientific chill. An agreement you systematically violated. You spent over $75,000 on my card. You booked first-class flights, 5-star hotels, and went on luxury shopping sprees. You did all of this behind my back, deliberately hiding it, hoping I would quietly foot the bill. We were going to tell you, my father stammered, his bravado gone. Things just got a little out of hand. A little out of hand? I repeated. Dad, this wasn't a minor slip-up. This was over $55,000 worth of fraud. You used my credit, my financial future, as your personal blank check. I have worked my ass off for every dollar I have. I've sacrificed vacations, social outings, and basic comforts to build my career and pay my debts. And you took the fruits of that labor and set them on fire in a single week. Brianna grabbed the phone. Her voice was a whine of tears and the outrage of a child whose favorite toy has been taken away. You're ruining my dream. All my friends, my followers, they're waiting for my Paris content. What am I supposed to tell them now? You've embarrassed me. That statement, more than anything, extinguished the last ember of hope for any remorse on their part. She wasn't worried about the colossal debt she'd helped create. She wasn't worried about the betrayal. She was worried about her social media image. Brianna, I said, and this time there was a cutting edge to my voice. Your embarrassment is not my problem. My problem is a $75,000 debt in my name. My problem is that my trust has been obliterated. The card is locked. The reservations are canceled. Your dream trip is over. Welcome to the real world, where actions have consequences. But what are we supposed to do? My mother wailed. We don't have enough money for another hotel. We're stranded in Paris. That is your problem to solve, I said flatly. You have your own credit cards. You have your own savings. Find a budget motel. Book an economy flight home. Do what normal people do when they overspend. I am not rescuing you. Not this time, not ever. You are going to regret this, Callista, my father threatened, his voice cold. No, Dad, I replied, my own voice firm as steel. I've spent my entire life regretting not doing this sooner. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a dissertation to finish and a company to run. Do not call me again. All future communication will be through email. I will be sending you a copy of the bill and a repayment plan I fully expect you to follow. Goodbye. And I hung up. The room was silent. I let out a long, shuddering breath. My heart was pounding like a war drum, but I didn't feel fear. I felt free. The invisible chains that had bound me for 28 years had just shattered. I had stood up for myself, not with screams or tears, but with cold, hard facts and an unbreakable boundary. The war was just beginning, I knew. There would be vicious words, manipulative attempts, punishing silence, but I was ready. Because I was no longer fighting for their approval. I was fighting for my own survival and my own future. The days following that fateful call were a trial of mental endurance. My family, as predicted, deployed every trick in the manipulator's handbook. First came the furious texts, accusing me of being an ungrateful, heartless monster who had abandoned her family in their time of need. Then came the tear-soaked voicemails from my mother, detailing how they were forced to stay in a dingy hotel near the airport, how Brianna was crying nonstop and was deeply traumatized. Finally, when I didn't respond, came the punishing silence. They cut me off completely, hoping the isolation would break me. But they didn't know my world no longer revolved around them. I had my chosen family. Liam was by my side, bringing me coffee and food when I forgot to eat, listening to me vent, and reminding me of my own strength. Professor Miller, noticing my stress, called me into his office. "Reed," he said, with no preamble. "You look like you've been through a war. What's going on?" I hesitated, then decided to tell him the truth, a condensed version of the financial and familial drama. I wasn't looking for pity, just an explanation for my temporary dip in performance. Professor Miller listened intently, his sharp eyes never leaving mine. When I finished, he didn't offer platitudes. Instead, he stood up, walked to his file cabinet, and pulled out a folder. "You know, Reed," he said, "resilience isn't just demonstrated in a lab, it's in how we handle adversity. You have a phenomenal mind, but more importantly, you have a spine of steel. Don't let anyone take that from you." He placed the folder on his desk. "This is the application for the Institute of Engineering's Young Innovator Award. The deadline is Friday. I think your research on natural language processing models has a very strong chance of winning. The award comes with a $50,000 research grant. Focus on this. Turn your anger into fuel. Show them who they underestimated." His words were like an electric current. He didn't pity me. He gave me a target, a way to channel my negative energy into a positive achievement. I threw myself into my work with a new ferocity. I worked day and night, not just to finish the application, but to prove to myself that I could succeed without their approval or support. My dissertation began to take sharp, brilliant form. Our startup, with Liam's help, finalized our product demo and began attracting the attention of angel investors. While my world was being rebuilt on a stronger foundation, my family's was cracking. They had been forced to cut their month-long trip down to a single, humiliating week. Brianna had to post lame excuses on Instagram about personal reasons and a sudden change of plans, earning skeptical comments from her followers. My parents were left to face their own credit card debt from that single week of mad spending. I held my ground. All communication was via email. I sent them a detailed repayment schedule for the initial $15,000. I had reluctantly agreed to. The rest was being disputed by the credit card company. They ignored it. So I did what the old Callista would never have dared. I consulted a lawyer. A formal demand letter was sent to their home, outlining the terms and the legal consequences of non-compliance. It was a final, definitive statement that our relationship was now a legal transaction. A few months later, two major events happened almost simultaneously. First, I got an email. I had won the Young Innovator Award. The $50,000 grant was mine. I screamed in the empty lab, a cry of joy, relief, and vindication. Second, our startup successfully closed its first seed round. We secured a $500,000 investment from a reputable VC firm. Liam and I hugged in our tiny office, surrounded by whiteboards covered in ideas, tears in our eyes. We had made it. The award ceremony was held at a luxury hotel in San Francisco. I wore a dress I'd bought with my own money, feeling powerful and self-assured. Liam and Professor Miller were in the audience, beaming with pride. When my name was called, I walked onto the stage, my heart pounding. I looked out at the crowd of top scientists, engineers, and innovators, and I knew this was where I belonged. In my acceptance speech, I didn't mention my family. I spoke about resilience. I spoke about the importance of finding mentors and allies who believe in you. I spoke about turning obstacles into opportunities. Success, I concluded, my voice ringing through the hall, is not the absence of failure or adversity. It is the ability to rise, stronger, from every fall. It comes from knowing your own worth, even when the world tries to tell you otherwise. After the ceremony, as I was talking to a group of investors, I felt a pair of eyes on me. I turned and saw them. My father, mother, and Brianna, standing at the back of the ballroom, looking out of place in their casual clothes. They must have seen the announcement online. They approached me, their expressions a strange mix of sheepishness and an unwelcome hint of pride. "Callista," my mother began, her voice hesitant. "We saw. That was impressive." "Congratulations," Brianna mumbled, her eyes fixed on the floor. My father, the ever-confident patriarch, just nodded silently. I looked at them, not with anger, but with a calm detachment. They seemed like strangers from a past chapter of my life. "Thank you," I said politely, but coolly. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some important people to speak with." I turned my back on them and resumed my conversation, leaving them standing there in an awkward silence. It wasn't an act of revenge, it was a statement of fact. They were no longer the center of my universe. They were just distant satellites in a far-off orbit. Several years have passed since that night. My life is unrecognizable. I successfully defended my dissertation. Our company, Logos AI, has flourished, becoming a leader in the NLP space, valued in the tens of millions. I no longer live in a cramped studio. I own my own home, a space filled with light and books, built on a foundation of hard work and self-respect. My relationship with my family remains distant. They began paying back the debt, in small increments, after realizing I would not back down. I receive occasional holiday texts, weak attempts to reconnect. I reply politely, but keep my distance. I have forgiven them, not because they deserve it, but because I deserve peace. My forgiveness was about releasing myself from the chains of resentment, not erasing what they did. Last year, I did something that meant more to me than any financial success. I went back to my university and, with Professor Miller, now a dear friend, I established a scholarship. It's called the Reed Resilience Scholarship. It isn't for the students with the highest grades or the most polished resumes. It's for first-generation students, those from unsupportive backgrounds, those who are struggling to make it on their own. It's for the kids who were like I was, the ones who feel invisible and undervalued, to tell them, "We see you. We believe in you. You are not alone." At the inaugural ceremony, looking at the young, hopeful faces of the first scholarship recipients, I realized a profound truth. The $75,000 credit card catastrophe wasn't a curse. It was a cruelly disguised gift. It forced me to confront the truth about my family and, more importantly, about myself. It taught me invaluable lessons no university ever could. The first lesson: self-worth is forged internally, not granted externally. ****. For years, I sought validation from people incapable of giving it. I learned that waiting for them to see my value was as futile as waiting for a rock to bloom. You must be your own jeweler, cutting and polishing the diamond within yourself, regardless of whether others see its light. The second lesson: family is not just blood, it is a choice. ****. True family are the people who lift you up, challenge you constructively, and celebrate your successes as if they were their own. They are the Liams who believe in your dream and the Professor Millers who see your potential. The support network you build is often far stronger than the one you are born into. The third lesson: boundaries are not walls to keep people out, they are gates to protect your own peace. ****. Setting and enforcing healthy boundaries is the ultimate act of self-love. It teaches others how to treat you and affirms that you are worthy of respect. Freezing that credit card wasn't just a financial defense, it was the first gate I ever built to protect my own soul. And finally, the most important lesson: the best revenge is not bitterness, but a life well and truly lived. ****. My success, my peace of mind, and my ability to turn my own pain into an opportunity for others, that is the real victory. I did not let their betrayal define me. Instead, I let it forge me into the strongest, most resilient, and most compassionate version of myself. My story isn't about a $75,000 debt. It's about reclaiming something far more priceless: myself.